morning, and welcome to today's deep dive. As you join us today, we are setting a measured and really analytical tone to look at the recent current events shaping the region and the country.
Right. Good morning.
Think of this as your morning news desk. We're committed to delivering the facts calmly and professionally, examining different perspectives without bias, and, well, providing you with a clear understanding of the geopolitical landscape without generating fear.
Exactly. Because there is a lot of noise out there right now. I mean, our goal is to cut through all of that by focusing on the primary patterns, the key decision makers, and the actual courses of action that are currently on the table.
Right. But before we begin our analysis, I do have a brief word about the technology powering today's assessment. This deep dive is sponsored by ProWave AI and is generated by Stylo News, which is an AI-powered news application.
Yes, and it's a great tool.
It really is. And to celebrate their one-year anniversary of operations, ProWave AI is offering a special March discount on Stylo News. You can use the discount code STYLO at www.stylonews.com. Just note, this is valid until the end of March and is strictly limited to the first 250 subscribers.
And to give you a bit of context on what that means for our discussion today, you are essentially getting a unique look under the hood here.
Yeah.
I mean, the Stylo News application is the consumer version of Stylo Intel Ops software. And that is a tool designed specifically for enterprise operations across government, military, and global business.
Right, so it's heavy duty.
Oh, absolutely. This means you have unique access to use the exact same caliber of information designed to support global decision makers.
Which perfectly sets up today's mission. The title of this briefing is Iran War Reinforces North Korea's Nuclear Resolve. Our focal region is North Korea, and the intelligence date is the 24th of March, 2026.
And we're going to be unpacking the impacts at the local, national, and international levels.
Right. So to understand what is happening in East Asia right now, we actually have to begin by looking at the Middle East. Over the past few weeks, we've all watched Operation Epic Fury unfold.
Yes, that coordinated military campaign by the United States and Israel against Iran.
Exactly. It started in late February, and the factual outcome of Operation Epic Fury was the systematic dismantling of Iranian military infrastructure. But, the most significant outcome was the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Right, and that operation is the catalyst for the entire chain of events we are seeing in Asia right now. Because North Korea's official outward reaction was swift. I mean, Pyongyang publicly condemned the attacks, loudly labeling them as shameless, villainous acts.
Yeah, they were very vocal on the world stage.
Very vocal, but internally. North Korean state media deliberately omitted the news of the Ayatollah's death from their domestic broadcasts. They completely scrubbed it from existence for their own people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is fascinating. They are incredibly vocal on the world stage about the attack itself, but completely silent to their own citizens about the leadership decapitation. I mean, why not use his death as a rallying cry to say, look at the aggressive West?
Well, because doing so shatters the illusion of invulnerability. The North Korean regime relies on a highly curated narrative that an authoritarian supreme leader is simply untouchable. If you admit to your populace that the Iranian supreme leader, a man with a massive military, can be targeted and eliminated, well, the immediate psychological implication is that the North Korean supreme leader could be next.
Right. It's about preventing panic at home. It makes me think of an analogy. It's like watching a neighbor whose house doesn't have a security system get robbed.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, instead of calling a neighborhood watch meeting, you immediately go out and double the height of your own electric fence. Iran doesn't possess a nuclear arsenal, and they suffered a catastrophic defeat. So for Pyongyang, this just validates their ultimate strategy, right? Nuclear deterrence is the sole guarantee of regime survival.
That is the core intelligence assessment here. I mean, Operation Epic Fury demonstrated a level of precision and military reach that genuinely unnerved Pyongyang. It has completely hardened their resolve against any denuclearization talks.
But I have to ask, looking at how fast North Korea is moving right now, is this reaction purely defensive paranoia? Or is it a calculated excuse to aggressively accelerate a weapons program they were, frankly, going to expand anyway?
It's absolutely a convergence of both. The fear is very real, but they are highly opportunistic. They are using the Middle East conflict as an ironclad geopolitical shield to justify aggressive expansions in their naval and missile programs that, might have otherwise drawn heavier international pushback.
And we are seeing that expansion physically manifest right now with a massive display of military muscle flexing. I mean, all of this is happening against the backdrop of the Freedom Shield exercises.
Yes, Freedom Shield.
Right. And for our listeners, Freedom Shield is an ongoing joint military drill involving around 18,000 South Korean troops alongside U.S. forces.
Exactly. And from the perspective of Washington and Seoul, the stated purpose of Freedom Shield is purely defensive readiness. It's standard procedure.
Sure.
However, North Korea historically views these defensive drills as rehearsals for a northward invasion. And in the current climate of heightened vulnerability post-Iran, Pyongyang has used these specific drills to justify severe military provocations.
So what does this all mean for the region's physical security? Because let's talk about those provocations. We're not just talking about angry press releases here.
No, not at all.
They launched approximately 10 ballistic missiles from the Sunan area directly into the East Sea, or the Sea of Japan. And on top of that, Kim Jong-un personally oversaw tests of new 600-millimeter ultra-precise multiple rocket launchers.
And the intelligence notes these are capable of carrying tactical nuclear warheads, striking targets 360 kilometers away.
Right.
And we should pause to explain why a multiple rocket launcher matters so much here. We often think of nuclear weapons as giant, single, intercontinental ballistic missiles. ICBMs meant to travel across the globe.
The big silo launches.
Exactly. But these 600-millimeter launchers are tactical battlefield weapons. Instead of firing a single sniper shot, this allows them to fire a shotgun blast of tactical nuclear warheads at regional targets.
Wow.
It is designed to overwhelm local missile defense systems. And the stated goal from Pyongyang was to instill unease within a 420-kilometer range.
That definitely reframes the threat level for the region. And they are expanding on the water, too. I mean, they tested strategic sea-to-ground cruise missiles launched from a newly commissioned stealth destroyer named the Choe Hyon in the Yellow Sea.
Yes, the Choe Hyon.
Which is a 5,000-ton warship. And North Korea has publicly announced plans to build 2 or more of these advanced surface warships annually. They want the 5th largest destroyer fleet globally by 2032.
Which is an astronomical goal for a heavily sanctioned economy. But it shows a deliberate shift. A sea-based launch platform is much harder to track and neutralize than a stationary land silo. So they are actively diversifying how and from where they can strike.
Imagine you're South Korea right now. You are watching your neighbor test tactical nukes and stealth destroyers, and at the exact same time, you are watching your own defensive umbrella potentially shrink.
Right, because of the asset transfers.
Exactly. There are active discussions about South Korea and the U.S. transferring some U.S. forces' Korea air defense assets, specifically THAAD and Patriot systems, out of South Korea and into the Middle East to support operations against Iran.
Right, and to clarify for our listeners, THAAD and Patriot systems are essentially the high-tech catcher's mitts for incoming missiles. They are critical defensive shields. The potential removal of those systems naturally draws deep concern from Seoul about a regional security spillover from the Middle East.
But looking at the broader intelligence consensus, analysts indicate a low probability of a major invasion from the north, right? The risk is more about limited provocation.
Yes, exactly.
So aren't these massive missile displays essentially a highly choreographed, high-stakes theatrical performance designed for deterrence rather than an actual prelude to war?
Yes. The intelligence supports that Kim Jong-un is utilizing brinkmanship, not preparing for suicidal aggression. It is coercive signaling. The goal is to project such an overwhelming cost to any potential intervention that the U.S. and South Korea are fully deterred.
Right.
However, the theater becomes incredibly dangerous when you alter the stage. I mean, if you remove Patriot and THAAD systems, the margin for miscalculation shrinks dramatically. A theatrical provocation could easily trigger a real conflict if the defensive shield is perceived to be weakened.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because while Kim Jong-un is projecting all this massive strength outward with missiles and warships, he still has that severe vulnerability inward, that psychological panic over the fate of Iran's leadership.
Yes, the domestic perception issue.
Right, and to solve that, he's projecting continuity and stability inwardly to his own people. Which brings us to the highly visible emergence of his teenage daughter, Ju.
Yes, Over the last 2 weeks, her presence has become a major fixture at critical military events.
It's fascinating. I mean, she has been seen observing those strategic cruise missile tests from the Choe Hyon destroyer. She's inspecting a weapons factory, firing a new pistol, and even overseeing military exercises featuring a new advanced tank that Pyongyang claims is the best in the world.
It is a profound contradiction to observe from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's a highly patriarchal society, and during a moment of intense global military stress, the ultimate symbol of the regime's untouchable future is a teenage girl. How does that actually work? How does introducing a young successor during a period of threatened nuclear conflict calm the domestic populace rather than alarm them?
Well, it comes down to the psychology of dynastic continuity. In the North Korean political system, the Kim family bloodline, which is referred to as the Mount Paektu bloodline, is completely synonymous with the state itself.
Right.
The state does not exist without the family. So by placing his daughter at the very center of their military modernization, Kim Jong-un is signaling that the regime's future is secure, it is planned out for generations, and it is intimately tied to their nuclear strength. It is a calculated move to absorb the psychological shock of seeing foreign leaders eliminated.
And she has powerful backing. Intelligence points to the expanding political role of Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong. She is likely acting as a political guardian for Ju-ae, ensuring the family's control remains absolute.
Exactly. And to anchor that control officially, we just saw a major domestic political milestone. Kim Jong-un was reelected with 99.93% of the vote in a single-candidate parliamentary election.
Which is a stark display of consolidated internal power.
Precisely. It sends a message of unbreakable domestic unity to both the North Korean populace and the outside world. He has his house in order, which sets the stage for his foreign policy maneuvers.
So let's pan out to that international level, because it really feels like we can't look at these nations on separate chessboards anymore.
No, not at all.
They are playing on the same board. North Korea is acting like the arsenal of autocracy, and the intelligence reveals some deeply entangled global flashpoints. For instance, the bombshell from former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton.
Yes, that was a massive revelation.
According to this intelligence, Iran was reportedly very close to acquiring a nuclear weapon directly from North Korea. Let's pause on that because that is staggering. And that transfer was allegedly halted by the U.S. military operation Epic Fury. So, if Operation Epic Fury stopped a nuclear transfer to Iran, does this prove that hard military power and not diplomacy is the only language these alliances understand?
Well, that is exactly the argument being made by proponents of military action. They argue that preemptive force was the only mechanism fast enough and definitive enough to stop a massive proliferation disaster.
Sure.
However, as analysts, we must examine the alternative perspective. Critics and diplomatic scholars warn that while this hard power approach stopped an immediate transfer, it has permanently radicalized North Korea's nuclear posture. It has validated their deepest fears and potentially made future diplomacy nearly impossible.
And diplomacy is getting harder because North Korea is actively building other alliances. They have deployed over 11,000 troops to Russia to gain combat experience in the Ukraine war, while simultaneously supplying Moscow with artillery shells and ballistic missiles.
And in return for that support, China and Russia are providing a geopolitical buffer. They maintain economic ties and actively oppose unilateral U.S. military actions, which provides strategic protection for Pyongyang on the world stage.
And if we look at the broader intelligence picture, global security threats are multiplying everywhere. I mean, U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard recently issued a warning about Pakistan's advancing a missile program.
Right. She noted it poses a potential future threat to the U.S. homeland, running completely parallel to North Korea's advancements.
Exactly. And we are also seeing Romania solidifying its strategic role as a NATO Eastern Front amid airspace tests by Russia. It illustrates a highly volatile, deeply interconnected landscape. Which brings us to the individuals actually holding the steering wheel right now. How are the key decision makers navigating this, and what courses of action are on the table?
Let's start with the United States. President Donald Trump is employing a dual approach. On one hand, his administration has demonstrated a clear readiness to use decisive military force. We saw that in Iran and previously in Venezuela.
Right, establishing a credible threat.
Exactly. But on the other hand, he has expressed an unpredictable willingness to engage diplomatically directly with Kim Jong-un.
And from Pyongyang's perspective, Kim Jong-un is responding by accelerating his weapons programs out of fear and the need for deterrence. But reportedly, he is open to conditional negotiations, provided the U.S. adjusts its stance to formally recognize North Korea's nuclear status.
Which brings us to South Korea and Japan. Their primary course of action is prioritizing regional stability above all else. They are investing heavily in advanced defense systems, such as variants of the Iron Dome, and strongly favor diplomatic deterrence. They are deeply opposed to preemptive strike that could trigger widespread conflict.
We also have international bodies like the UN and the IAEA calling for de-escalation and adherence to non-proliferation. They're warning against the destabilizing effects of these interconnected crises.
Yes.
But when you look at public sentiment, social media is painting a really contrasting picture of all this.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the data, hashtags like hashtag North Korea and hashtag Kim Jong-un are surging in volume.
Yeah.
But there is a massive contrast in the tone.
Yeah.
On one side, you have serious geopolitical anxiety about very real nuclear risks. But trending right alongside that is viral internet culture. There are humorous memes widely circulating depicting Kim Jong-un as a sidelined observer, almost jealous of the military attention the U.S.-Iran conflict is getting.
It's surreal to see a tactical nuke test followed immediately by a meme making fun of the guy ordering the test. But as analysts, we know that anxiety is rooted in very real upcoming flashpoints. So what should listeners be watching for?
Well, there are a few key events. First, there's the potential for a high-level summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un during Trump's scheduled visit to Asia and China in late March or early April 2026.
Okay.
Second, the conclusion of the Freedom Shield exercises on March 19th will be a critical window. And finally, we expect continued calculated missile demonstrations from Pyongyang as they refine those new tactical systems.
So, weighing the courses of action, it seems like we have two main paths here. Path 1. The U.S. continues military pressure, risking a cornered North Korea lashing out. Path 2. The U.S. recognizes North Korea as a nuclear state to get them to the negotiating table, which terrifies South Korea and Japan. Is there a viable third option, or are we stuck choosing the lesser of two immense geopolitical evils?
It's incredibly difficult. The intelligence consensus is increasingly leaning toward managing the risk rather than permanently solving it. A viable third option might involve incremental arms control freezing the development of new systems without formally recognizing them as a legitimate nuclear state. But finding that balance requires a baseline level of trust that simply does not exist right now.
We will continue to monitor these developments objectively as they unfold. As we conclude today's briefing, we want to remind you of the technology that makes this analysis possible. This deep dive was generated by Stylo News.
Yes, it's a mobile and computer app that you can download right now.
Exactly. It allows individuals to customize their own personal intelligence-style briefs, pulling data from hundreds of traditional news sources as well as X. If you value being well-informed, we urge you to subscribe to Stylo News to get AI-powered news on demand by visiting www.stylonews.com.
It is an incredibly powerful tool for navigating today's complex information landscape.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and taking the time to get well-informed with us. We really appreciate it. Please feel free to request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms.
And as we sign off, I'd like to leave you with one final thought to consider.
Yeah.
We spend so much time looking at the physical hardware, the tanks, the stealth destroyers. But as the world focuses intensely on the physical missiles North Korea is building, what if their most dangerous weapon isn't the warheads themselves, but the transactional alliances they are forging to export that exact same technology to other conflict zones?